In many of my previous videos, I showed you how the socialists have completely corrupted Portugal. They have corrupted the justice system, they have corrupted the media, they have corrupted the regulators, they have corrupted pretty much all institutions and increased the size of the state to a point where it consumes 50% of the GDP all by itself. All of this at the same time that they increase the public debt to record values and have made Portugal completely dependent on external factors. In short, the socialist policies in the past 48 years, and specifically the policies in the last 26 years, have destroyed Portugal's ability to become a prosperous country that provides good living conditions. Thanks to those policies, Portuguese people live on the brink of poverty and misery, and every year they have more and more taxes to pay. And none of it goes for better services or better living conditions. It all goes to sustain the huge state that produces nothing and to those that keep the socialists in power, such as public servants and pensioners. But the socialists are not happy with this. They want more. The Socialist Party essentially thrives on corruption, but there are still some limits on what they can do in each district, as they depend on the central budget allocation and on the central government itself for certain issues. In order to facilitate corruption and shady deals even more, socialists want to split Portugal into regional governments. This is what we call Regionalização. There are a maximum of 11 regions in Portugal, and they are Minho, Trás-os-Montes, Douro Litoral, Beira Alta, Beira Litoral, Beira Baixa, Extremadura, Ribatejo, Alto Alentejo, Baixo Alentejo, and Algarve. Some of these regions could actually become just one region, like Alto Alentejo and Baixo Alentejo, but since these details are not known yet, I'm assuming a maximum of 11 regions. With this split, Portugal could have 11 regional governments, all with their specific budgets and all elected by the people that live in that region. There would still be a central government, but with limited powers when compared to the powers that the central government has now. Socialists already control most districts in Portugal, and if they also get regional governors, then the control will be absolute. Portugal, with a central government, is already one of the most corrupt countries in the so-called developed world. Can you imagine what it will become with 11 regional governments? Thanks to the corruption of the justice system and with a single central government, corruption is nearly impossible to prosecute and convict in Portugal. With 11 regional governments, this will only get worse. Portugal needs a complete reform of the justice system and changes to the constitution in order to guarantee that the misuse of the Portuguese taxpayer money will be considered a crime and with a fairly high prison sentence as a consequence. Only with these changes in place, and with an actual decrease in crimes of corruption, can we even consider splitting Portugal into different regions. But as you can imagine, the socialists could care less about any of this. They don't want to reform the justice system, since they were the key players that corrupted the justice system to make it what it is today. It suits their needs. They will not be convicted for their crimes in such a justice system. According to our constitution, any matter that isn't budget or tax related and a few other subjects can be a referendum. The constitution is also clear on the fact that any referendum is only valid if at least 50% of the registered voters actually voted in it. And this makes perfect sense, as it guarantees that the actual majority decides the result of the referendum. In fact, this should be the norm for all elections in a democracy. Elections should only be valid if 50% or more of the registered voters actually vote in those elections. This article in the Constitution is an issue for the socialists, however. As I've been showing you in my videos about election results, abstention in Portugal is usually very high. On many occasions, it went above 50%. And because of this, there's a high risk that the referendum the socialists want to push will not be validated. And thus, we started hearing some voices that would like to see the constitution changed to allow a referendum to be considered valid even with less than 50% of the votes. One of these people is Luísa Salgueiro. She is the president of the National Association of Portuguese Municipals and a socialist, of course. She supports the split of the country into regional governments and suggests that the constitution needs to be adjusted to make sure that a minority can decide the future of the country even in a referendum. This is the usual in Portugal. If there is a law that goes against what the socialists want, they just go ahead and change it. Recently I showed you an example of that. The law that prevented family members of the government from doing business with the Portuguese state was changed by the socialists so that their family members could do business with the Portuguese state. And there are many other examples of this. However, when it comes to changes to the constitution, it's not that simple. For any constitution change, 2/3 of the deputies in parliament need to agree with the change. And even with the recent absolute majority the socialists got, they do not have 2/3 of the deputies in parliament to change the constitution. However, if the Socialist Party joins forces with the Social Democrats, they have enough deputies to change the constitution. So the question is, will the Social Democrats help socialists get what they want? Rui Rio is still the leader of the Social Democrats, and I've been extremely critical of him in past videos, because he completely neutralized the Social Democratic Party as an opposition party and actually sided with the socialists on many occasions, going as far as saying that it is not patriotic to criticize the government during the pandemic. Because of all this and much more, I called Rui Rio a socialist Trojan horse. He's always been there to help the socialists whenever the socialists needed help to do what they wanted. Will he also help the socialists split Portugal into regional governments? Is that the reason why he did not resign after the defeat in the recent elections? And even if Rui Rio resigns as a leader of the Social Democratic Party before the socialists propose a constitution change, will the Social Democrats support that change in the near future to force the split of Portugal into regional governments? I really hope I'm wrong, because we already live under minority rule. Referendums are very much the only type of election where the majority is still needed. If the constitution is changed to allow minority rule in referendums, Portugal will lose its last democratic principle. I hope you like this, and I'll see you next time.